One single play, 3.5 minutes into the game, that's all it took to set the entire WNBA world on fire. On August 8, 2026, at the United Center in Chicago, a hard foul between Chicago Sky guard DiJonai Carrington and Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham didn't just end a quarter, it ignited one of the most explosive controversies the league has ever seen. Within hours, the footage had millions of views. Sports commentators, politicians, fans, and players all had something to say. And then Carrington walked into the locker room and posted 2 words on social media that made everything 10 times worse. What looked like a basketball play on the surface was about to become a full-blown cultural firestorm. And to understand how deep this goes, you have to start from the very beginning. DiJonai Carrington didn't come from nowhere. Born in San Diego, California on January 8, 1998, she grew up in a household where sports weren't just a hobby, they were a way of life. Her mother served as an athletic director, and from day one, Carrington was built for competition. She dominated high school basketball at Horizon Christian Academy, scoring over 2,000 career points and earning McDonald's All-American honors before she ever set foot on a college court. From there, she earned a spot at one of the most prestigious programs in the country, Stanford University. She spent 4 years with the Cardinal, winning 2 Pac-12 tournament championships and developing a double major in psychology and African American studies. Not just a baller, a thinker. After Stanford, she transferred to Baylor for her final season of eligibility, where she was named Big 12's 6th Player of the Year before the Connecticut Sun drafted her 20th overall in the 2021 WNBA draft. By 2024, Carrington had fully arrived. She won the WNBA's Most Improved Player award and landed a spot on the All-Defensive First Team, transforming herself into one of the most feared perimeter defenders in the league. Her game was built on relentless pressure, suffocating opponents, chasing down every play, refusing to let anyone have an easy bucket. It was exactly that mentality that would eventually put her on a collision course with Sophie Cunningham. Now, Cunningham, born August 16, 1996, in Columbia, Missouri, a sports-obsessed kid who holds a black belt in Taekwondo and played football briefly in high school before dedicating herself to basketball, she tore through her career at the University of Missouri, earning 3 straight first-team All-SEC honors before the Phoenix Mercury drafted her 13th overall in 2019. After 6 solid seasons in Phoenix, she was traded to the Indiana Fever ahead of the 2025 season, and that's where her story exploded in a way nobody saw coming. June 17, 2025. The Indiana Fever were hosting the Connecticut Sun when the game got physical in the worst way. During a heated sequence, Fever superstar Caitlin Clark was poked in the eye during a play. Moments later, with Clark still grabbing at her face, her teammate Marina Mabrey rushed in and knocked Clark to the ground from behind. The officials? They only issued a technical foul. The crowd was furious. The league said nothing in the moment. And then Sophie Cunningham had seen enough. One play later, when Sun guard Jacy Sheldon drove toward the basket on a fast break, Cunningham wrapped her arms around Sheldon from behind and pulled her down to the hardwood. Both players hit the floor hard. A brief brawl broke out. Sheldon confronted Cunningham face-to-face as teammates rushed in to separate them. Officials ejected both players and called it a Flagrant 2 foul. But online, Cunningham became a hero overnight.
Fever fans, and plenty of people who had never watched women's basketball a day in their lives, flooded social media, declaring that Cunningham had done what nobody else in the league was willing to do: protect her teammate by any means necessary. The clip racked up millions of views. Cunningham became the WNBA's most talked-about enforcer. Sponsors came calling. Dana White showed up courtside wearing a Cunningham t-shirt. She was living a viral moment that very few athletes ever experience. But that enforcer label came with a target, and she was about to find out exactly what that meant. Fast forward to August 8, 2026, Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever at the United Center. The game was barely a quarter old when it all went sideways. Carrington had already been electric in the opening minutes. She had scored 8 points in the first 3.5 minutes, looking like the best player on the floor. Then, with 1:59 remaining in the first quarter, Cunningham caught a pass and pushed into transition. She had a clear path to the basket, open layup, the kind of play that Carrington, known across the league for never letting anyone have an easy bucket, simply cannot let happen. Carrington chased. She reached, and her left arm caught Cunningham directly in the head and jaw as she rose for the shot. Cunningham crashed to the floor hard. The arena held its breath. Then she popped up, visibly shaken, visibly furious, and charged straight at Carrington before teammates intervened. Officials stopped play and went to the monitor. After a review, they upgraded the contact to a flagrant 2 foul, reserved under WNBA rules for contact that is both unnecessary and excessive, and that doesn't appear to be a clear play on the ball. The penalty is automatic ejection. Carrington walked off the court to a mix of boos and applause from the Chicago crowd, and by multiple reports, she was grinning and shaking her head as she disappeared into the tunnel. Cunningham stayed on the floor. She made the ensuing free throws, and then she had one thing to say after the game. She believed the foul was intentional. She told reporters, "This has nothing to do with race. Last year, I did the same thing and I got kicked out, and I deserved to be kicked out. There's no reason even to play that card." But the card had already been played, and from the locker room, Carrington had already detonated the next explosion. While Cunningham was still on the court making her free throws, DiJonai Carrington pulled out her phone in the locker room and posted 2 words on Threads, "white privilege," and she tagged the Indiana Fever account. The internet didn't walk, it sprinted to conclusions. Virtually every sports commentator, fan account, and media personality who saw the post read it the exact same way. Carrington was claiming that her ejection was the result of white privilege, that a black woman had been punished more harshly because the player she fouled happened to be white. Within hours, the clip of the foul and the screenshot of the post were everywhere. The debate raged across every platform. Then came Emmanuel Acho. The former NFL linebacker turned sports media personality addressed the situation directly on his podcast, Speakeasy, and he did not hold back. Acho argued that calling a basketball officiating decision white privilege was not only inaccurate, it was harmful, that it undermined the real weight of the term and ignored the fact that the flagrant 2 was called correctly under the rules of the game. Acho's take went viral almost immediately, accumulating over 2.3 million views on X. And that's when Carrington responded, and things got even messier. Rather than letting the post speak for itself or issuing a simple clarification, Carrington went directly at Acho on X with a long, detailed response, and it raised more questions than it answered.
She insisted that she had never once claimed that the flagrant foul assessment was an act of white privilege. She said that was Acho's assumption. She pointed to her academic credentials, her Stanford education, her double major in psychology and African American studies as evidence that she would never invoke the term as a rhetorical weapon without evidence to back it up. The message was sharp, intellectual, and confident. But there was one enormous problem. If the white privilege post wasn't about the foul, the thing that had literally just happened to her minutes earlier, then what was it about? Carrington never explained that. She never told the public what specific situation she was referencing. She tagged the Indiana Fever specifically, but insisted the post wasn't directed at them. The world had watched her foul Cunningham, get ejected, go to the locker room, and immediately post white privilege, and now she was saying the connection everyone made was wrong. Acho came back with a response that cut through the noise. "You are correct.
My assumption, along with the majority of the sports world, was that you posting white privilege immediately following being thrown out of a game for fouling somebody white was regarding the foul. But if the two things are somehow not connected, that's on me. I'll stand corrected. Then he added, however, America is a speaker-oriented country, so the burden is on you for being clear, direct, and easy to understand. The crowd roared on Acho's side. His post racked up millions more views, and when Carrington still didn't provide a clear answer about what she was actually referring to, Acho came back a final time with a message that landed like a gut punch. Stop gaslighting. He had a point that was hard to argue with. Inflammatory language posted in real time with no context, followed by days of explanation that never actually explained anything, had left the public more confused and more frustrated than when it started. Here's where the story gets significantly more complicated because neither of these players was new to this kind of moment. Carrington had been here before. In the 2024 playoffs, while playing for the Connecticut Sun against the Indiana Fever, her hand made contact with Caitlin Clark's eye during a defensive play, leaving Clark with a black eye. The moment went viral and sparked weeks of debate about whether the contact was deliberate. Carrington maintained it was a basketball play. A significant portion of the internet disagreed. Then, in June 2025, while playing for the Dallas Wings, she chased down Fever guard Skylar Diggins on a fast break and made contact with her head, drawing another flagrant foul. 3 incidents, 3 hard contacts with opponents' heads. The pattern was undeniable, even if intent remained impossible to prove. But Cunningham? She had receipts too. The very clip that made her famous, the play on Jacy Sheldon, resurfaced almost immediately after the Carrington ejection, and now millions of people were watching it with fresh eyes. There was Cunningham wrapping both arms around Sheldon from behind, dragging her to the floor during a fast break, also a flagrant 2, also an ejection. The similarity between the two plays was striking. The clip exploded on X, accumulating over 1.2 million views within hours. The internet had been quick to make Cunningham a hero and Carrington a villain, but the video evidence told a more complicated story. Both players had committed nearly identical plays under nearly identical circumstances. The difference in public reaction said less about basketball and more about everything surrounding these two women in this particular moment. When a sports story becomes a culture war story, everyone gets an opinion, including people who have nothing to do with basketball. Florida Attorney General James Uthmayer made waves when he publicly declared that WNBA games don't come to Florida because if they did, he would charge players with assault for plays like Carrington's. "I'll be charging people with assault and battery," he said in a clip that circulated widely. It was a statement that commentators across the political spectrum called wildly out of line, a government official threatening criminal prosecution over a sports foul that had already been adjudicated by the officials and would be reviewed by the league. On the media side, Fox News columnist Joe Concha called for Carrington to be suspended for the remainder of the season, framing the foul as deliberately politically motivated, an attack on Cunningham specifically because of her public stance on transgender athletes in women's sports. There was no evidence presented to support the claim that the play was premeditated or politically driven, but the allegation spread rapidly across right-leaning media. From the other direction, some outlets and commentators pointed to what they saw as a glaring double standard in how the two players' histories of physical play had been covered. How Cunningham's very similar foul from the previous season had made her a beloved hero, while Carrington's nearly identical play was framed as a dangerous character flaw. Sports Illustrated published a piece noting the irony of Cunningham, who earned her enforcer reputation by committing a flagrant 2 on Jacy Sheldon, reacting with outrage when the same physical style of play was directed back at her. The Chicago Sky coach Tyler Marsh offered Carrington some support.
Watching the play live, Marsh said, it looked to him like Carrington was genuinely attempting to contest the shot, though he acknowledged he hadn't re-watched the replay before making that statement. Meanwhile, the WNBA front office stayed largely quiet and reviewed the play. Under the league's 2026 disciplinary rules, a flagrant 2 carries 2 flagrant points and a mandatory $1,000 fine. A player who accumulates 3 flagrant points and then receives another flagrant 2 faces an automatic 2-game suspension. The commissioner also retains discretion to issue additional punishment based on the severity and context of any ejection. Carrington's fine was confirmed. Whether additional punishment would follow remained to be seen. Whatever chaos was raging on social media, DiJonai Carrington had a game to play the very next day. On August 10th, with the internet still loudly debating her every move, Carrington took the floor for the Chicago Sky against the Seattle Storm, and she went off. She dropped a career-high 26 points off the bench, going a perfect 10 of 10 from the free throw line. The performance was breathtaking. It was the kind of game that reminded everyone watching that beyond the controversy, beyond the foul, beyond the social media posts, there was an elite basketball player who could put the ball in the basket at a level very few in the league could match. In the post-game press conference, Carrington addressed the foul itself directly for the first time. "I'm never going to let an open layup just be had," she told reporters. "You can pull clips from however many seasons of me making that same exact play. It was unfortunate that I made contact with her in the way that I did, but it was never intentional." She also said, pointedly, that it might happen again because she plays a certain way, has always played that way, and isn't planning to change it. Cunningham's response to that? A tight smile and a few words that suggest the story between these two women is far from over. The next time Chicago and Indiana are scheduled to face each other is August 23rd. Everyone in the league is already circling that date on the calendar. So what does all of this actually mean? At its core, this was a hard foul in a basketball game. It was reviewed, called correctly under the rules, and resulted in an ejection and a fine. That part is settled. But everything that happened around that foul, the social media post, the public debate, the political commentary, the competing historical narratives about both players, reveals something far bigger than one play in one quarter of one game.
The WNBA in 2026 is a league that has never been more watched, more debated, or culturally loaded. Every play carries extra weight, every word gets dissected, and two players with histories of physical, confrontational basketball, one celebrated for it, one condemned for it, ended up as the center of a storm that exposed every tension simmering beneath the surface of the sport right now. Carrington maintains the foul was never intentional. Cunningham maintains it was. The white privilege post remains unexplained to almost everyone's satisfaction. And on August 23rd, when these two teams meet again at the United Center, the entire country will be watching, because whatever happened the first time, the second chapter is going to be something else entirely. The only thing that's certain is this: neither of these women is done making headlines.